Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Wednesday, July 3rd. Today we will continue to have gusty winds over parts of southern Idaho, northern Utah, down into the eastern side of Utah, with more of a northwest wind flow behind the cold front that moved through. We also have a few isolated thunderstorms possibly over far eastern Idaho into Wyoming, generally being on the dry side, but again very isolated. As we move into Thursday and Friday, things really start to heat up as the very strong west coast ridge moves into the region. So we will see hot temperatures moving into the western side of the Great Basin and gradually spreading eastward. The hottest days are still over the weekend going into next week. Also on the east side of this ridge, we'll continue to have some breezy winds on Thursday and maybe even Friday over parts of eastern Utah, but not quite as strong as what we'll see today. Over the last 24 hours, we've seen really no precipitation or lightning across the Great Basin. And we did have a reported 10 fires for 3 acres yesterday, with 737 acres of growth on our large fire, the Little Twist. Over the last 7 to 14 days, we've seen very dry conditions over western and southern Nevada, and even areas that have seen some precipitation over parts of Idaho, Nevada, into northern Utah have been below normal for the last 2 weeks. The only area that we've seen above normal precipitation has been over the southern and eastern half of Utah, down into Arizona with those pulses of monsoon moisture. ERCs are on the rise across the Great Basin and are still very critical in southern areas and generally above the 70th or 80th percentile, kind of around many areas of the Great Basin, but sort of a mixed bag as we have had some weather systems move through, dropping temperatures at times and giving some thunderstorms or some light precipitation to areas. But again, conditions will continue to dry out very rapidly over the next week. Looking at some of our ERC charts on the west side of the Great Basin along the Sierra front, ERCs are still above normal, but will be significantly rising and actually reaching near historical maximums for the time of year, potentially by the end of the 7-day period with this next heat wave. Similar conditions are expected over southern and eastern areas of the Great Basin. Even in areas that have had recent moisture, we will see the significant rise in ERCs. Our satellite image from this morning shows the strong ridge of high pressure off the west coast that will continue building eastward. And on the east side of this ridge, we'll continue to have some breezy winds even over the next few days over parts of Idaho, Utah, and Wyoming as we continue with that northwest wind component as that ridge strengthens and moves eastward. But it doesn't look like winds will be overly critical, but we still could have some gusts in the 25 to 30 mile per hour range at times. And that is something to watch, obviously, with the heat and dryness moving in. Here's the weather pattern for later today. Again, just very dry conditions moving into the Great Basin. We still have some high risk for winds today and those low humidity combinations where the fuels are critical from southern Idaho into northern and eastern Utah. And you can see today a lot of single-digit relative humidities across Nevada spreading eastward. So in our areas where the winds will be gusty, we'll see relative humidity between about 10 and 15%. And you can see from the image on the right, the winds generally gusting between 30 and 40 miles per hour. We could have a couple areas that peak above 40 miles per hour. Temperatures will be warming. We'll see highs near 100 degrees in western Nevada today and 113 down south, and gradual warming across the east side of the Great Basin. That was a bit cooler. And then relative humidity, overnight recoveries. Again, these kind of look like daytime, but they are overnight recoveries. We'll see recoveries in the teens across many areas of western and southern Nevada into Utah. As we move on to Thursday, the ridge just strengthens. We have no high risk, but again, overall increasing temperatures with moderate fire potential as that heat really takes hold. And continued dry conditions, lots of areas of single-digit daytime relative humidity. You can see the winds on Thursday for the holiday. Still some breezy northwest winds across especially Utah and Wyoming, and especially a downslope kind of on the east side of the mountains. But for the most part, most gusts will be in the 20s. Temperatures continue to warm. We'll peak above 100 on the west side of the Great Basin and 90 degrees up in Boise. And then again, very poor overnight recoveries for the western and southern side of the Great Basin. Friday, more of the same. The ridge continues to build in, a little bit more brown on the map on Friday. And then again, those single-digit RHs continue to spread east. Friday, we still could see some, again, on the east side of that ridge, those breezy northwest winds. Friday might actually just be a tad stronger than Thursday, but still below 30 miles per hour in most areas. So not planning any high risk at this time. Temperatures continue to warm up on Friday, and again, those poor RH recoveries. We're even seeing overnight recoveries not even reach 10% over southern areas. So again, very dry during the day, and that dryness just continues at night. So certainly if we do get a fire, we would be seeing longer burn periods during this time. No precipitation expected for the next few days. You can see a couple of spatterings there up in far eastern Idaho into Wyoming, but again, nothing that is noteworthy. Then on Saturday through the weekend, that ridge just continues to dominate. We'll see some of our peak temperatures going into later in the weekend and early next week. We'll see highs reaching over 105 over parts of western and northern Nevada, over 115 in southern Nevada, above 100 up in Boise. Just very hot temperatures, dry conditions. Some of these temperatures over parts of western side of the Great Basin could even be pushing all-time maximum highs. So again, very, very hot and dry and for a very long period of time. This will continue well into early next week. Our 7-day total precipitation, obviously nothing expected over the next 7 days, but there will be a change as we get into mid to late next week. So after 7 to 10 days of very hot and dry conditions, we will see moisture starting to return from the south. This picture here, I believe, is overdone with the amount of moisture, but again, we will see a return of thunderstorms and at least some light precipitation, but I don't really expect above normal precipitation. But this is at least a good indicator that starting July 11th or 12th, we will start to see those thunderstorms start to return from the south and push north. Still very hot temperatures will continue. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.